What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright, joined as always by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing?
Steve, fantasy, doing good. Real life football. The NFC East never ceases to amaze. Just when you think it can't get worse, it does.
Yeah, the Cowboys really should have traded for Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, they would be in great shape right now if they did.
Yeah, and maybe they tried in Miami, didn't want to get rid of him because of a mentor role or something like that. But man, it would have changed this division around, I would think, quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's still wide open. With the Eagles losing to the Giants, they could free fall here. They've got 4 really difficult games in a row, so this division is wide open. And I mean, Andy Dalton coming back, he didn't look great, but looks better than the last couple guys. So maybe that gives the Cowboys a little bit of a chance. I don't know, man. This division is going to be won in like 5 wins. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. I am now hoping for Alex Smith to just take the starting job and pull it off himself. And we'll just go with Washington. I was really hoping he got the win.
Yeah, almost 400 yards he had. No touchdowns, but
still solid given everything he came back from, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I'm pulling for now, just so I can, follow that storyline. What else can you do in that division?
Yeah, no, there's not much. I mean, I just kind of riding a couple of the quarterbacks in fantasy leagues that I have, so I've been kind of rooting for the Cardinals. I have Kyler in one place and got Herbert in the other spot. I don't think they've got much of a playoff hope, but they're fun to watch, and the Chiefs are always fun to watch. So really just looking at big teams and fantasy implications here.
Did the Hail Mary win you a week, or?
No, that was in our league, and unfortunately got me close, but I lost by 10.
Oh man, that was crazy.
Yeah, which stinks because I would have been very close, but I was on the fence between Curtis Samuel and Josh Reynolds all day, and ended up playing Curtis Samuel, who scored 2.7, while Josh Reynolds scored 13.4. So I think I would have won had I played Josh Reynolds over Curtis Samuel in a very close game. Yeah.
And you are not playing one of the better teams in the league either. That hurts.
Yeah, well, he's coming on. He was worse. He's 0-6. Now he's 4-6.
Yeah, he's got Michael Thomas coming back, so that helps him out quite a bit. But
should be
interesting.
Pretty big bunch down there. It looks like they'll be, from the 5th seed to the 10th seed, everyone will be within a game. So these last few playoff spots in our work league will be very coveted, and a lot of people vying for them.
Yeah, I will hopefully not fall down to those graces. I'll be sitting and tied for second. So
yeah, you seem to be in good shape. Nice. Up 2 probably on the non-playoff teams here with 3 to play.
Yeah, should be fine. But with that aside, we still need to go through waivers.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be looking at the wire. So you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've been piecing it together at running back the last few weeks and going to have to keep it going here. So we've got some interesting ones on the waivers this week.
Yeah, so before we jump into the running backs, as a quick reminder, we got the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Falcons, and the Jets returning from bye. On a bye this week, we have the Bills, the 49ers, the Bears, and the Giants. So yeah, we'll jump into those running backs. Well, top of the list, probably Nyheim Hines. Another solid week for him. Still only rostered in about 41% of leagues up against Green Bay. Is that someone you're going to look at to try to plug your running back hole there?
Yeah, I think in both of the leagues that I'm looking to fill some holes, a lot of running backs are owned, and Hines isn't available. But he'd be someone that I think the game script is going to be in good shape for, right? Because you imagine, even though Indy's defense has been really good, Rodgers and Adams have been pretty lights out. Maybe they get Lazard back this week. So could be the game script you want with a Nyheim Hines having to come back and get a lot of dump-offs. So I think he's probably a pretty solid pickup. Now, you just don't know how long it's going to last, right? Well, it could be a Wilkins week. There's always a chance JT turns it on. So you're not sure how long it's going to last. But this week seems to have the making of a Hines week. I still don't know exactly how much I would bid if he is available, though.
Yeah, his consistency is really bad. So here's in a half point scoring format. Here are his weekly scores: 23.9, 8, 4.7, 4, 5.2 bye week, 19.7, 4.8, 26. So his floor is pretty low, like 4 points, 5 points. I mean, he went under one the one time. That's pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
But his floor is low, his ceiling is sky high, and you really don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. You got to go by, what's the, what are you expecting for a makeup for the team? And I mean, game wise, you got Packers this week, Titans in the week after, Houston, Vegas, Houston. So all offenses that can score. So you'd imagine that even with a good defense, there should be some decent game scripts in line for him. So I think he's a solid, bye week replacement. I don't know, you want to really rely on him, but if you need, upside, which is not something you usually thought with Hines in the past, because the roles are so in flux, he's a guy that you could plug in.
Yeah, it's definitely worse out there for sure. Damian Harris, 59% owned at Houston, starting to grab that starting job away. Makes me worried about our little offer we sent out there for Sony. But yeah, he's been looking pretty good and has a good matchup against Houston, right?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be a pretty good matchup with Houston. I mean, you got Burkhead, 24% owned, also available. So with all the guys there, I think there's always that chance that it falls back into just like be a committee. But Harris has looked good. And I know he was someone I was high on last year. I ended up trading him and Sony both away in a dynasty league. And you were a little low on. He's maybe one of the few people that, doesn't get any touches in his rookie year and ends up coming out and doing a lot better in the second year. I usually don't see that.
Yeah, it's something we talked about quite a bit when doing our mocks. Me and you grabbed him a fair bit at the end, just as like a dart throw. He was getting good reports out of camp. So, yeah, I mean, if there's anyone on the list, he's the one I'm probably bidding on. I like him more than Hines at this point.
Yeah, I think it's him. I'm not really interested in Burkhead. And then our next guy that maybe you can get a little cheaper because he's heading on bye, but Wayne Gallman's going to have at least 2 more weeks after the bye, and imagine, well, I guess at least 1 more week after the bye with Freeman on the IR. But he's someone that you might be able to scoop up, and depending on how everything goes with Freeman's injury, and if he continues to play well, could be somebody that you could roll with.
Yeah, absolutely.
For possibly the rest of the season.
He's been getting it done via touchdowns, which is kind of scary. I'm looking at his past 4 weeks: 34 yards and a touchdown, 44 and a touchdown, 68 and a touchdown. If he doesn't get a touchdown, you're not happy. But as a guy you got off on the waiver wire, that's fantastic. He's been really helping you out. He's got some good matchups after the bye: Cincinnati, Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland. At some point, like you said, you would assume Freeman's going to be back in there. And, as good as Gallman's been, I'd imagine he's not going to fully take the job. At best, it'll be a 50-50 split. He does have Baltimore on championship week, which really sucks. But overall, that's pretty solid. It's just a matter of when Freeman comes back and what that workload looks like. But until then, yeah, I mean, you could definitely throw some money at him. He's easily probably worth. I say easily. His worth is actually kind of difficult because of this bye week that's in there. But 15 to 20, I think, is fair given the bye week and how he's been performing.
Yeah, and you have to realize that you're probably gonna be eating a roster spot for a week, which is probably tough to bear when you're spending that much. I think he may be someone that there's a couple other guys we'll talk about here that you can maybe aim to bid to use this week. And then maybe you can try to get him a little cheaper because maybe people see the buy and get scared away of it. And you can get him for 5 to 10. Probably not. I mean, he's 50% owned. So most leagues, he's probably not available. But yeah, it's just tough to bid that much on someone who's not going to play this week.
Another guy that is going to play this week, has a fantastic matchup, is Kalen Ballage. Only 19% owned. He's got the Jets. He's had 2 really good weeks in a row, and I don't think anyone is aiming to return that's going to really steal that time away from him. So he looks like a great play for this week. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think this is a solid 1 week guy if you don't already have him and haven't already been using him, because everything that I've read, it does seem like Eckler would be on track to return in week 12 against Buffalo. So when Eckler comes back, I think it's Eckler, and I mean, maybe Balaj is usable if he's the number two, but who knows if Jackson will be back by then, right? Because you'll have, I guess he just went on this week, so he would be done through the Buffalo game. But I think with this, you can maybe get one more definite week out of Balaj, and then it becomes, a very cloudy situation with the amount of backs that are there and the amount of backs that it seems like the team likes maybe ahead of him with Eckler and Jackson.
Yeah, he's someone where what you bid is going to depend on what your position is. Like if I'm in a contender, and I don't have a lot of major buys or anything, I'm probably going to pass him up, maybe throw a couple bucks and see what happens. But I'm not going to pay up because he's not a long-term play. But if I'm somebody, kind of like you in our league where you're kind of in that middle, you're in a playoff spot, but there's a ton of teams around you, you need to buy a win. I'd be willing to pay up because he looks like a great start this week.
Yeah, against the Jets. I mean, I think I only have about 17 fab dollars left, so I doubt I even have enough to get him at this point. But he definitely, has a outstanding matchup, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have Ahmed. Is that how you pronounce that? I haven't really seen
Salvan Ahmed, I believe. Yes.
Ahmed, yes.
And he, with recent news today, I don't know if you saw, Jordan Howard was cut.
Yeah, that's something.
So him cut, I believe we still have Gaskin, at least one more week on IR?
I believe he's got one more week, yeah.
Maybe
and
two more.
Breida's not on an IR, but he's got a hamstring injury. So even when he comes back, he'll probably be limited in some faction, and he's done nothing the entire year. So I'm not... He's going to take some carries away and some work away, but I can't see Breida really factoring that heavily into things. So it does seem like it's his job.
Just comes back to... when's Gaskin come back, right? So if you imagine it's going to be next week, that means he gets Denver this week, and then they get the Jets the week after. So if somehow you think Gaskin isn't back, then that week 12 matchup against the Jets looks really good. Gaskin's back. Maybe, you're taking a shot on him getting some garbage time work.
It's just wild that you had in Miami Gaskin, who did nothing last year. I mean, he did some things, but really didn't do much last year. Ahmed, who's no one's ever heard of, performing.
He's a rookie.
Yeah, rookie, and not on anyone's radar. Done very well. But then Jordan Howard and Breida, two people that we know, aren't old by any stretch of the imagination, can't do anything. It's something else. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. But we've got a few, solid options. And then I'll touch on just two more here in the running backs that are just kind of more depth plays that you got to at least look at. Malcolm Brown scored again. You know what you're getting with him. We just traded him away on one of our dynasty leagues, but he's kind of just that solid, fifth back on your team where if you're in a pinch, you can start him and he'll get you 20 to 30 yards and hopefully a touchdown. He's always going to be involved in the game plan, but never overly involved. So you're not thrilled there. He's 25% owned. He's got Tampa, so kind of a tough matchup. Another interesting one, though, could be Devontae Booker, who has been playing really well a couple weeks in a row now. He's only 3% owned, but coming off of a game where he carried the ball 16 times for 81 yards, had one catch for 2 yards, but scored 2 touchdowns. Game before that, he had another 68 yards and a touchdown, so he's been getting work even as the number 2. And they got the Chiefs, so could be a tough matchup. There's a lot of, I don't imagine they're blowing the Chiefs out, but maybe they're getting blown out at a point, or maybe they just are. It's a pretty fast-paced game, and you got to use multiple running backs. So, what do you think about Brown, Booker, either guys that you'd want to stash, either for a handcuff or injury option, or just who knows what's going to happen?
I'm not that interested in Brown unless I have no running back depth. He's a fine shot to take in that sense. I really don't have a ton of interest in Booker either. I mean, the 1 week, last week he was good. This week he was really good. Now, a lot of that was just garbage time. They were up a lot, so they just ran the ball a lot, and they didn't use Jacobs anymore. So it worries me. But if I'm the Jacobs owner, I'm absolutely grabbing him as a handcuff. And if not, he's one of the players where, like a non-Zeke owner can grab Pollard, right? Just in case he goes down, then you get a win. I think it kind of falls in that category because, like you say, you got Kansas City this week. But here's some matchups after that: Atlanta, the Jets, Indy, tougher matchup. The Chargers and Miami. I mean, he's not swimming in tough matchups. They're all average or worse outside of Indy. So he's got some good matchups, and if something happens to Jacobs, that's going to, he could be huge. They seem to be giving him that role, and it looks like he's past Jalen Richard at this point. So I don't expect this kind of 10 plus point thing to continue happening. I can't trust to put him in a lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very speculative play and probably more just holding for a potential injury ahead of him. But, Jacobs gets a lot of work. So if he does get injured, you'd imagine you're going to get a lot of work for Booker. So, it's more of, you can throw a buck or two on him if you have an open spot that you can roster him in. But any other thoughts for the running backs before we move on to wide receivers?
No, I think we're good there. We could go ahead and move on over to the wide receiver position. We'll start with one of your Eagles here, Jalen Reagor. He got 7 targets in the last game, so pretty solid there. Only 47 yards, but still a solid guy to have. It looks like the Eagles might need to throw the ball quite a bit. His matchups aren't bad rest of the season. They got Cleveland, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona, Dallas on championship week. So he could be a very interesting ad. He is still only owned in 26% of leagues, which is shocking, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we were talking about him the last couple weeks, and he's clearly part of the game plan. So I'm kind of surprised that he's only available in 20%. He's still available in 26% of, only rostered in 26% of leagues. I think he's a guy that needs to be owned at this point. He's clearly part of the offense. You're not definitely starting him, but I know I started him in one league last week. Needed to. He's kind of that fringe flex option, and if he's got a really good matchup, a guy that you can plug in, and is a rookie that could develop into become an everyday play, over the next few weeks for the Eagles, based on just the way that they're going. And it's not pretty to watch, but he's really involved in the offense. So I think he's definitely someone you got to add.
Yeah, in fact, from one rookie to another, we got Michael Pittman, only 10% owned. We could really carry over the same conversation you had about Hines to Pittman. It's just the matchup. You got Green Bay this week, so who's going to put up points, and then you got bad defenses: Tennessee, Houston, Vegas, Houston. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh in week 16. But this is 2 weeks in a row that he's looked good. One of those against the Baltimore defense. So it seems like he's coming along in rookie fashion.
Yeah, he is, and I think he's probably going to be the hot topic here, the hot waiver claim of the wide receivers here. He had a great first week, really back. I guess he's second week back, but really in the offense, and you could tell they were utilizing him throughout the game. It wasn't even just one drive where he got heavily targeted. It spread out, so it's good to see T.Y. Hilton was playing. That was another thing that, if T.Y.'s out, maybe it's, you're not sure if that's why he's getting work, but it seems like they're really trying to integrate him into the offense as well. So I think Reagor and Pittman are both guys that have to be added at this point. I don't love spending up on receivers, but those are guys I wouldn't mind spending in the, 10 to 15 range for, because I think that they're only going to expand their roles as the season goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Jakobi Meyers next on our list, 48% owned. Got Houston this week, which is a good matchup. He's had 3 really good weeks, and the one before that, a fourth, pretty good as well, pretty average. Of course, this week kind of saved by throwing a touchdown, a little bit different, but N'Keal Harry returned. He still ended up with, I think, 7 targets, so he's still getting some work and has a great matchup at least this week. So I think he's still on a lot of people's radars. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he has to be. I picked him up in another league as well and didn't, get a chance to start him anywhere. But I know Houston starting him in our work league. And, in a matchup against Houston, not a great defense for Houston, but a pretty solid offense. So seems to be, the prime wide receiver target. We'll see, with Harry back, likely how those targets break down. But I would imagine, if you're betting man, Myers is still probably likely to be the lead receiver on the team.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't start him this week because he's facing Baltimore. I don't think anyone
Oh, I
could
thought
really.
you did.
No,
Yeah.
you can't. I don't think you could blame me for that against
No.
Baltimore. But yeah, I'm probably going to start, at least for this week, start him and probably end up benching Fulgham. He's kind of the opposite of Myers, where people have come back and now his target share is dropping. Where, Harry came back and it didn't hurt Myers that bad. Fulgham definitely on the opposite end of that. I don't know if I can trust him moving forward. So at least for 1 week, I think I'm going to take advantage of this Houston matchup, start him and Gam again, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, roll the dice one more time.
Yeah. Next up, Mr. Cole Beasley, 50% owned. He is on bye this week, but he's been looking good, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's someone that you and I have been hanging on to in our Dynasty League. He's kind of that perfect, just kind of plug in second flex when you have bye weeks or injuries.
We were laughed
really
at when we
out.
traded for him.
Yeah, well, I was telling my friend, we got him basically to move down from the 205 to the 206. So we basically got him for free.
Yep, absolutely. And people were like, Beasley in a trade? What are you doing? And then, he was usable last year. He's usable this year. He's been a treasure to own.
Yeah, and I think he was one of the big reasons we won this week in that league. He was our high scorer in like the 20s in the PPR league.
Yeah, absolutely. So another great asset to have, again, on a bye week this week. So that's a shame. But, I'd still be willing to put up.
Yeah.
I don't know. His name still is kind of worrisome. Like, he's probably worth 10 or more at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he's out there, I would almost more look to see if someone cuts him this week. I know he had a decent game, but maybe they saw John Brown back looking good, didn't realize that John Brown got hurt again. So if someone thinks, man, John Brown's back, Beasley's probably done, you may be able to get him on the cheap because someone cut him, not realizing that. And that bye week, they need the roster spot. So he could be someone that you may be able to even get for free if someone cuts him and you can get him over the weekend here when he goes through his waiver.
Yeah, that happens on the bye week sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to lump in the rest of these guys together here, Will, because they're all very kind of boom-bustish. But we have Keelan Cole, 23% owned, MVS, 16, Lazard, 42, Sammy Watkins at 38, and Michael Gallup at 47. Set some highlights here. Who interests you here? Is there anyone that doesn't interest you at all? Anyone you specifically want to call out?
Yeah, it's Keelan Cole is one that I feel like I've always been kind of down on, but he seems to have a pretty good connection with Luton. So as long as Luton's playing, and I think we have Chenault out, it seems like Keelan Cole's been getting the targets. So he's someone that I think you have to acknowledge and may still be able to get on the cheap. MVS, couple of boom weeks in a row here, but Lazard coming back. I don't know that you can rely on that, especially against a tough Indy defense. But it's interesting to see Lazard out on injury and Watkins out on injury, maybe come back. Both owned 42 and 38% respectively.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't know. Like, you told me to pick one of them. I don't know who I would pick. I'm definitely not going for Watkins. I don't want to play that game. I'm over trying with that. Keelan Cole, I've mentioned before that I've always liked him, but I don't know. He's so inconsistent, and maybe he will be fine for as long as Chenault's out. That's definitely a possibility. Gallup, that's fine. MVS and Lazard, not bad. I'd probably rather own MVS as just like an upside shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could tell I'm losing and I just need to take that shot. But if I were to take a shot on any of them, I guess it would probably be Cole, and just for the short term. But I'm not excited personally about any of them.
No, one I think that is interesting is Michael Gallup, 47% owned in Yahoo leagues here. Got Minnesota, so maybe you don't want to play him this week, but it's a decent matchup, and it does look like Andy Dalton's practicing and going to be playing this week. With Andy Dalton in, he seemed to favor Gallup out of all of them, so he could be a speculative ad that you may be able to add, and, if it doesn't pan out, fine. Probably you need to pay much, if anything at all, if he's out there, but you might be able to get, a pop and a big play guy because it really seems like Andy Dalton favors him.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot that Dalton favored him so much. I mean, real small sample size, but
Yeah.
The favoring was there. That's true.
So that wraps us up here at wide receiver. We'll move on to tight ends. Only a few here, as I don't think there's really any good options outside of Travis Kelce right now that you can really bank on, getting big points. So we got a couple of guys that have had either a decent week or like Logan Thomas here is just always in our conversation because he's the position sucks and he's that guy that's always going to be okay.
Yeah, and his ownership's low, sitting
Always.
at 35%. So he's out there. He's got Cincinnati. That's a pretty good matchup. As we said in the beginning of the show, Alex Smith put up 390 yards. Yeah, that's pretty solid. If he continues to do that, then Logan Thomas is going to be someone you're going to want to own. So he's definitely someone I would add. Out of all the other options that we have here today, I would probably put him at number one. But again, they're not all great. So we had him. We've talked quite a bit about him. We got Higbee next on the list. Higbee had himself a pretty good week, 6 targets, 60 yards. Not bad. With that in mind, he hasn't done much this year, so it's kind of a nice pop-off. Do you trust him moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, he's a big play tight end. If I really need a high upside, right, I think him and Logan Thomas are kind of like the opposites of each other. Whereas Thomas, I know I'm getting a high floor, probably low ceiling. Higbee, it's the opposite, right? You're banking on that this week is Higbee week in the offense, but he could easily go 2 for 20 because, Everett and Woods and Kupp went off. So I think it really just depends what you need. A tough week against Tampa, but maybe it's a higher scoring game. And even though you got a tough matchup, the opportunities are going to be there.
He might be somebody that, not starting right now, but at some point, if I'm streaming the tight end or I don't have a great tight end, I might be looking to stash for the playoffs because week 15 and 16, you've got the Jets in Seattle.
That's pretty solid.
It is solid, and you could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
I don't want to stash him from now until then, but in the next couple weeks, it might be worth grabbing him. And, if you need to pull the trigger there, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time where, if you want to get in really early, you can stash that tight end, that quarterback, that defense that has a good schedule for the playoffs. But in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see people start doing it as we get closer to playoff time.
Yep. Another tight end that had a pretty similar week, Jordan Reed out in San Francisco. Now he's on a bye this week, so that definitely hurts.
Yeah, probably not spending much on him because of the bye, but could be someone that maybe you can stash, if he's out there for free after the waivers. If you, just need a tight end to play down the stretch here and get away without it this week. He made a really good highlight catch, pulling it off of his shoelaces there. So yeah, I mean, he's looked good. Obviously, health's always an issue, but if he's healthy, I don't mind him.
Yeah, he ain't bad. And then finally, from my team to yours, we got Richard Rodgers on here again, 5% owned. I believe I got an alert that Ertz is coming back.
Yeah, I just got that as well, maybe like half hour ago. So maybe that changes it here a bit, especially with Goddard playing. He went into the tent for a head issue, but then came out and finished the game. But 4 catches, 5 targets, 60 yards is pretty solid. If you're in any type of PPR league, probably not getting in the end zone, but he's a guy that can get a lot of passes. So you're not going to bid on him, but if there's any type of injuries and either of the top 2 are out, Carson likes to use multiple tight ends with the Eagles, so he is a decent low-end option to plug in.
Yeah, and you did need to keep in mind, the Eagles have liked their 2 tight end sets, but they are getting healthy now. You have Miles, You have Boston Scott, both. You have Rieger's back, Alshon's back. Fulgrim's emerged a little bit.
The weapons.
Yeah, Ertz is going to be coming back. So you went from a barren wasteland to everybody being back, and that's going to hurt people like Rodgers. It's going to hurt people like Boston Scott and Travis Fulgham and stuff like that. So you got to keep that in mind when you're adding people like that. The situation's changed.
Absolutely. So we will move on here to the quarterback position. Next up, we have, first up in the quarterbacks, we have Cam Newton 62% owned, but still out there for 4 out of 10 of you guys, and got Houston this week, so really good matchup. He's got a great baseline with the rushing ability, and may have to score some points against a good offense, but not the best defense on the other side there. So I like the matchup.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. It's a matchup play. He's very hard to trust. He, as an owner of him in our work league, he is incredibly frustrating. He's not giving you that upside that you used to have. And, he had a great matchup against the Jets last week. And, he had put up 24 points or so. That's not bad. That's pretty solid. But against the Jets, you'd really want more. But then he turned around and put up 18, which isn't bad against Baltimore. He did the same against a good Buffalo defense too. So I think he'll be fine against Houston, but he has those bust games in him, unfortunately. So it is kind of worrisome, but I'm rolling him out this week. I am somewhat confident, but also scared at the same time. And it's kind of what everybody's going to be in when you're dealing with Cam, streaming going forward.
Next up, we have Kirk Cousins, 29% owned, but we'll see what he does tonight against a tough Chicago defense. He gets to move on to a friendlier defense in the Cowboys at home. That is pretty appealing, especially if Andy Dalton can come back and get the offense going for Dallas, and this maybe is a higher scoring game. We'll see. Obviously, it always goes through Dalvin Cook for Minnesota, so you're more than likely going to be hoping for a touchdown or two out of Cousins. Because you probably don't have a super high upside, but good playmakers, and Thielen's always just reliable. But you got Justin Jefferson, you got Irv Smith Jr., so guys that can break big plays for him, and you can never roll the running backs out of the backfield. So I like Cousins next week as a pretty solid stream against Dallas.
Yeah, two bad defenses, so it could be an interesting game. You may also be able to get him cheaper because if memory serves well, I might be wrong, but I think Cousins is historically pretty bad in prime time.
Yes, so tonight it could be
and a tough
bloodbath in which people may be paying you $5 to take him off their hands.
Right? So
tonight.
He's definitely interesting, and you could probably get him cheap because of that. So yeah, I agree. He's a pretty good buy. Another one who we've seen some good stuff from, rookie Tua Tagovailoa, 45% owned at Denver. So a decent matchup for him as well. You interested in Tua?
Yeah, he hasn't put up the yardage that you're really hoping for. I think this week he had like $170, but he had 2 touchdowns, so that really got the baseline up. Didn't run much like he did in his first true start there. Denver's defense is solid, so it's tough. I probably gamble on Cousins over Tua, and just the way that the matchups play out here. It all depends on if Tua can get it going on the ground and get a nice little baseline there, because we see so many running quarterbacks that can run as well, just have such a high floor because of their running baseline.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll up next two together here, Will. Very interesting plays. You had Alex Smith against Cincinnati. Again, we mentioned 390 yards, pretty good. And then Jameis Winston has reemerged as a great matchup against Atlanta. So
yeah, it's crazy to think, right?
I know, very interesting.
Jameis Winston is back and starting. Yeah. Well, I guess not officially, but looking like
he'll be starting.
Going to be starting.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I have to decide between these two, maybe you have like a super flex and you have some, bye week issues on your second quarterback. I started Alex Smith last week, this week, because Pat Mahomes was on bye, and I had Ben, who I needed a quarterback because it wasn't positive Ben was going to play. I lucked out that I was able to play Ben and Alex Smith. But yeah, he's not going to have a ton of upside, but he's a quarterback, so someone that you can plug in if you really need to. I'm, not playing him ahead of the other guys we've said, but I'd rather play him over Winston because the floor with Winston is even lower with, I imagine, a lot more Taysom Hill being involved if it's Winston starting and not Breeze.
So is Winston your upside? Like, out of all the quarterbacks we've gone over, Newton, Cousins, Tua, Alex Smith, Winston, does Winston have the highest upside?
I'd say maybe, but it's definitely the most volatile, right?
Yeah, he definitely has no floor.
Yeah, I don't know that I would justify the upside. Like I'd rather play Kirk Cousins over Wentz than with that upside, which maybe isn't as high, but still is very high. I'd much rather play all of the other guys, and if I'm looking upside, probably Kirk Cousins.
Now, it is worth noting, and I don't have they given a timetable for Breeze?
No, but I heard it was a collapsed lung and multiple broken ribs.
So keep in mind, last week I had mentioned that Breeze has a great schedule for the rest of the year, and that is going to carry over to Jameis Winston.
Man, can you imagine we have him on our practice squad in our Dynasty League? If we bring him up and have to play him,
yeah, I got
man,
him
he
in
only
my
had
Dynasty too. Wow.
he only had 2.3 in a whole half against the Niners this week, so not great. And I just don't think that he can be played this week. But as you mentioned, Atlanta this week, Denver, Atlanta, Philly, Kansas City, Minnesota. So there are some options there to play him.
Yeah, definitely a grab and hold and just see what happens. It's pretty much what you're waiting for. But let's get wrap up the quarterbacks. Will, you want to go over some defensive streamers?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of options here. We've got the Chargers, 41%, and they got the Jets. That's probably the play. Most likely someone owns them already, either because they are a decent defense or because they foresaw the Jets coming up this week. But if they're out there, the defense, you maybe throw 5 or 10 on. They usually don't want to spend up on them. I don't know that they have a great schedule the rest of the way. Let's pull it up and see if this is someone maybe you want to add.
I wouldn't think so. Going through the end of the year, you're bound to go through the Chiefs at least once. And I would think the Raiders too, which isn't the greatest matchup.
Jets, Buffalo, New England, Atlanta, Vegas, Denver. So they're done with Kansas City. I think Kansas City's week 17.
Oh, okay, 17, not bad. But still, I mean, there's some good offenses there.
The Patriots and Denver, decent. But yeah, Buffalo,
not
Atlanta,
amazing.
Vegas.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's really just this week that you're picking them up for. So maybe you don't want to waste too much on them based on that. And then we also have the Dolphins, 58% owned at Denver. The Browns, 18% owned, home for the Eagles. And then the Vikings, 54% owned versus the Cowboys, which now we have to note is likely going to be Andy Dalton. Any of those interest you, Steve?
Outside of the Chargers?
Yeah, outside of the Chargers.
No. I guess the Dolphins. The Dolphins defense hasn't been bad. Locke, he was looking a little banged up. I don't know. Have you heard anything on him?
I haven't heard anything specific, but I do remember seeing that he was I remember seeing him, grimacing in the game, and then, I wouldn't imagine, or I wouldn't be surprised if we see something come out that he is actually injured or something came of that game.
Yeah, so here, I don't know when it came out, but Coach said there's a chance that he won't play Week 11 due to a rib injury.
So who is their backup?
Brett Rippon? Is he the one that started? We should know this because they played quite a bit this year. I think it's Brett Rippon.
That very likely could be Brett Rippon.
So in which case, I'll take the Dolphins. I'll take the Dolphins either way because, I mean, Locke's either playing or he's playing with a rib injury, which I imagine is not a lot of fun for a quarterback.
No, we'll see with Drew Brees likely. Not looking so good either with the rib injury here.
Exactly.
Likely going to miss a couple weeks.
Yep. So Dolphins would be my pick if the Chargers aren't available. With that in mind, I mean, the Dolphins are 58% owned. The Chargers are like 41% owned. So you'd actually have better chances against the Chargers.
True. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the Browns to be a decent fantasy play just with the amount of turnovers that the Eagles have had, especially on the road with the way that their running game's been. They may not be on the field very often. So I think that all signs point to the Browns being a decent, pivot if all of the good options of just quality defenses are gone.
Yep, agreed. I think that's going to wrap up the show here. Will, any closing thoughts?
No. Good luck, everybody, on waivers here coming up tomorrow. I guess it would be today if you're listening, tomorrow for us recording here. And if do you have any additional questions, hit us up on Twitter. Trust your board.
Yeah, trust your board. Get your start sit questions over for us. We will see you again on Thursday with that episode. Until then, trust your board.